Why do you think Spurs aren't quite reaching the heights of Arsenal at the moment?
Daniel Levy. We don't need to be scrubbing around in the bargain basement for players.
I don't rate Arteta that much. He's done a reasonable job, he's done okay, but he's a whinger, he's a moaner.
They're doing all right against mid-table teams like Chelsea. Against the bigger clubs, they'll struggle.
Do I think it's good management? I think he's got lucky. The wheels will come off at some point.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Trending. It's a sad weekend for football. I think we can all agree. Football lost this weekend. As a Spurs fan anyway, I truly believe that we might be in for something really horrible in the next few weeks. Anyway, I'm joined by Ibby.
Good morning.
He's
good
back from Saudi. I'm joined by Ben. He's back from
New
Southampton. And I'm joined by Joel.
Morning, boys.
Where did you
nice
go?
to have us all back, innit?
Where
Where did I go?
Yeah.
I went to the Den, actually.
Oh,
I
yeah,
watched
you
Plymouth
did.
Millwall.
Plymouth. Good old
which was
championship
awful.
soccer.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Ahead of probably the biggest game of the weekend, North London derby, probably the best derby in the Premier League in recent times. We went down to ask Spurs fans, how far are they off of their North London rivals? I won't even say it.
How far do you think Spurs are off Arsenal at the moment?
I think we're probably a year or two behind. I mean, I'm not sure how long Arteta's been at Arsenal now, but they had their rough patch when they were like 15th in the table and everyone said, oh, sack Arteta. They stuck with him, and you can see now the project, as everyone likes calling it, is there. They've gone out and spent big on players like Rice, brought in Raya from Brentford, which people don't think was a big signing, but he's a hell of a lot better than Ramsdale. But now we look at Tottenham as like, we've got a great starting 11, but second we lose a Van der Ven, a Romero, a Udogie. Even up front, losing Richarlison. Werner's not. He's good on the wing, but not a good finisher. I say give us another year or two. We'll probably, hopefully this season, get top four. My head says it'll be fifth, which will be fine. Go out, win the Europa League next year, spend a bit of money, getting a clinical finisher. Son's 30, 31. You need, go and sign, I think, Jonathan David out in Lille. He's a great player. Get 2 more years, stick with Ange, even if we have 5th, 6th finishes the next couple of years, get a cup. That's what we need more than anything else.
To be honest, I suppose we are quite a bit away off at the moment, but we're going in the right direction. And I think next season, get some more players and get full seasons behind him, we'll be closing that up very quickly.
Why do you think Spurs aren't quite reaching the heights of Arsenal at the moment?
Daniel Levy. Daniel Levy. The man, don't get me wrong, credit where it's due. I'm not a Levy lover, but credit where it's due. He's treated this club like a business, and business-wise, we're good. We're not being bothered by financial fair play, and we're safe and sound in that respect. But at the same time, we don't need to be scrubbing around in the bargain basement for players. We need to be looking at 50, 60, 70, 80 million pound players, not looking at getting five players for 50 million. And if we had the quality coming in that we should have, and that we should be getting for a club like Spurs, with the money that we turn over, and for the fact that we're one of the richest clubs in the world, there's no reason at all why we should be sitting here and languishing sort of just outside and struggling for a top 4 place.
So much further down the line than we are. Obviously, we've just started, but you can see from the first 10 games how we look at our prime in them first 10. Then compared to like Arsenal, but we played them at the start of the season and drew, so anything can happen. A goal, a deflection and a penalty, these are the only goals they could score against us, so hopefully it's something like that today.
I actually think they're not as far off as people say they are. I think 2 years is a roughly good justification, just because you see at the start of the season they was doing so well and they kind of just tailed off as like you hit Christmas time. Yeah. I actually think they're probably 3 players off, and another season under Ange, and they're in and around the title race for Tottenham. It's just a bit of staying as consistent as possible and not dropping off.
For me, we're 11 months into Ange's project now. It's going overwhelmingly very well. We are 5th. It's in our destiny if we want to get 4th. We obviously 2 games in hand, and Villa takes us 1 point off them. We have to do a lot. But if you had said last season we're 8th, we finished 8th. It was a horrible end to the season. Everyone was depressed. You get this guy in, there'd be a good vibe around it. Yes, we fell off through injuries, lots of injuries, and players coming back from injury. James Maddison was a ghost yesterday, totally just not on the pitch. I'm happy with where we are. I think we're probably 2 years away from actually being anything more than a team that challenges for 4th place, and that is where, yes, backing in the right areas, yes, bringing in the right players, yes, making sure that You're really harsh. You're cutthroat. I saw Charlie Eccleshare talking about this recently, where he was saying you have to sell assets that still have monetary value now.
Yeah.
You cannot wait until they're no longer valuable to you, then sell them. And it's absolutely right. And it's where teams like Man City take the gamble on Zinchenko and take the gamble on Jesus and take the gamble on João Cancelo, and they sell them before that price dips. And yeah, you might get burnt every now and then, but if you want to keep building,
where United have failed massively.
I can see Liverpool doing a lot of that this summer.
100%. And look, that for me is being brave, and that's what Spurs need to do in the next couple of years. But they are off of this Arsenal side. It is better, but the fans agree. Numerically it's better. And
vibes.
And visually,
Vibes.
visually
Vibes
it's better. But look, we went and asked Spurs fans, is this team actually better than Conte's Tottenham?
How do you rate this Spurs team next to Conte's?
I like them man for man. It's just, I think they're better overall. A lot of them are still the same, but they seem like different players in total. It's a weird one because some of those players, when you look at them under Conte, you just thought they were awful and disgusting, really. But they're right now.
They're more of a team
now.
now. More of a team
I
now.
like them now.
And they're like, you can tell that there's more of a team spirit.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, there's a bit more family to it, I think.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. There's more of a connection between fan and players and the coach and Ange as well. No, it's nice, good.
Okay, so is this Spurs team better than Conte's in your opinion?
Yeah, definitely.
How so?
How so? Because we play proper, attractive, attacking football.
I definitely think there's a lot more confidence in the players compared to Conte than Ange, just because I feel like Ange's philosophy towards the game and towards like his mental capacity, I feel like it's a lot better compared to Conte. I feel like Conte was more harsh in a sense. I feel like he was very like, you have to win, and more just sort of like, I think he was a bit more focused on like the style of playing, while Ange is more philosophical and more mental. And I feel like that's given like a massive boost to the players. So I'm hoping that will push through today, and we'll see what happens.
I would say they're a better side than Conte's. Pure, just with the football that we're playing, it's a better type of football. Conte was very defensive, and it wasn't exciting. It wasn't enjoyable to watch. Don't get me wrong. No manager's going to have the backing of every fan, but I think that the football that Ange has brought to Tottenham, I think the mentality that he's brought, and the fact he's taken the shackles off a little bit for the boys to play. Taking the shackles off, taking the shackles off the lads and giving them the freedom to be able to sort of play the football that we know Tottenham can play has been a very big positive.
Yeah.
Probably, I'd say Conte's is about a 4 out of 10, and this one's probably about 7 or 8.
Those 6 months when he came from about January to the end of the season, it was like we were winning 5-1 against Newcastle here, and it was like, oh, if this continues, this is like the Conte Chelsea team that was blitzing me. And then the second season, we had a 4-1 win, I think, start the season, and then it was like lots of 1-0s and 2-1s. You're like, it's a bit boring, but it's getting results, fine. And then we lost a lot. And then Conte threw everyone under the bus. Whereas Ange, you can see it's a lot more exciting to watch, which as fans is what we want, really.
Like, I know we joke about, the vibes are better,
Yeah.
but it's clearly carrying a lot of weight
Yeah.
for both
Vibes
the fans
matter.
and the
They
players.
actually do.
Mate, look,
Perspective matters.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, of course it does.
Look, if you're apathetic about your club, that's like football cancer.
Yeah.
Being apathetic about it, just feeling no connection, not feeling like you're enjoying it, and that was with Conte and with those managers in general, with Mourinho, with Conte, it becomes all about the result.
Exactly.
And nothing else matters. And so if the results don't go your way, when those 1-0s start going 0-0s or 1-0 losses, it feels
There's
a lot
no
worse.
joy there.
Yeah, and the vibe around the stadium starts to go negative quite quickly. All that matters is the result, and the results aren't going away. Well,
yeah.
you'll feel that slip very quickly.
Klopp said it at Liverpool, it is about the journey. As much as it
Exactly.
is getting there and winning things and being a better team and getting silverware, so much of it is about how you go through that together and the journey that you go on.
Liverpool fans versus City fans, for instance, where there has been this massive journey over the last few years. City have obviously been super dominant, but Liverpool have been on this sort of
Emotional
journey. I think you sort of compare the two and you'd be like, you'd probably rather be a Liverpool fan, even though City have won trophy after trophy after trophy. If you were to choose as someone just coming in blank, you'd look at the emotion of Anfield.
The growth is very different.
The growth is super, hugely different.
I just feel like there's a lack of jeopardy with something like City as well. Like I know everyone likes to laugh at Spurs, and that's why this Conte thing's being brought up now anyway, because But it's a much better environment now. And if Spurs do win a trophy, you better believe the party will go on all night long. When we win the Europa League easily next season.
Opens up us down Seven Sisters High Road. Oh,
we will be there. We will be there.
I will not be there.
Arteta came out on top in the tete-a-tete.
Good.
Nice.
Good. Enjoyed that. Very good.
We spoke to Spurs fans about where Arteta now ranks in global football managers. He might win the Premier League, and if not, this Arsenal team is very set up to go on and potentially win the league next year or something more.
Pep, Klopp, Angelotti's still better than him. You ain't got a clue, have you? He's definitely in the top 10. Definitely in the top 10. I'll give him that. I don't know where you'd rank him in the else. I can't give you a number. I'm not allowed to.
In the world's managers, he's nowhere near. He's done all right for a couple of seasons. I mean, talk to me in 20 years' time, or talk to me if he's done what Alex Ferguson's done.
I hate to admit it, he is a decent manager. Learning from someone like Guardiola, he's going to be good. But I'm just hoping that, with Ange's sort of like different stance, like not so much tactics, but like the mentality, I'm hoping that like our team will be solid and work through and push through today.
I think he's quite high up because obviously a couple of years ago they was finishing 8th and whatnot and they weren't very good, and now he's brought them back up, got rid of the players that he didn't think were working for the team, and then he's made them more of a team and brought them closer to the title again.
The lack of acknowledgement for Arne Slot in that top 5 is fucking absolutely disgusting.
I think there's 5 better managers. Pep, Jurgen Klopp,
Yeah.
Carlo Ancelotti,
Yeah.
Diego Simeone. Because people actually forget, like, he's won titles. Yeah. He's won the La Liga. He's won Europa League, Super Cups. Arteta hasn't done that.
Yeah.
Yes, he hasn't had as much time. And the 5th one, I want to put Zidane in there. And I get he's had an amazing Real Madrid team, but I'm not going to lie. Like, he's done so well. He's just won trophies after trophies. And then you have that Arteta conversation. I just don't think until you win that Premier League, it's so hard to put you in the conversation.
I think there's an English like insularity to the question around like Arteta, especially before he's won a title. Because I think like if you asked a Spanish football fan, like Xavi being there has already won a La Liga.
Exactly.
There are managers across the continent that have won more domestic titles than Arteta, and like that's not to diminish what Arteta is doing and has done, but there is an element where, if you look at it, Arteta got sort of like the way Arteta plays the team that he's built so far got sort of held off by a relatively poor Bayern side this season, and Thomas Tuchel, who hasn't done much with this Bayern team. So I think there's an element where like I wouldn't want to place him yet because there are so many managers that have done it at specific clubs. Like even Conte, you could argue, like obviously had a stinker at Spurs. Like, it wasn't a great season, but multiple wins across the continent. Like
that's it.
To put him in there, I think would be unfair on a lot of other managers across the continent. I think.
Agreed.
Who knows how the season ends, but they are definitely improving year on year. He's definitely found another way of playing this year, because Arsenal were blowing teams away last year, and this year they've had to do it a different way. It took them a while to work it out, especially with the injury to Jurrien Timber. That was obviously a massive blow to how he wanted to play this season. So we asked Tottenham fans, are Arsenal building a dynasty, and how worried are they about the potential of Arsenal building a dynasty with Arteta?
I'm not really worried about them, not too much. Not really worried about them. They're doing all right against mid-table teams like Chelsea and teams like that. But it's fine. It's fine. Against the bigger clubs, they'll struggle. Bigger teams like Spurs, they'll struggle for sure.
I don't rate Arteta that much. He's done a reasonable job. He's done okay, but he's a whinger, he's a moaner, and if things start to go wrong or unravel, it falls apart very quickly.
It is worrying, like seeing what he's achieving at Arsenal. Like he seems to have, like in the past, like managers like Mourinho and they haven't had as much free reign as Arteta's appeared to have had, like with Arsenal. So I'm hoping that Levy means business with Ange and that he's fully going to back Ange this summer. I would love to see some like statement players signed this summer, because I think that's what we really need for the rebuild at the moment. To be such a shame to see like Mourinho, Nuno, like the same pattern happening again and again. Like I would love to see Ange like fully supported.
The guy should have been sacked 3 years ago, right? But for whatever, but he stumbled upon whatever it is that makes Arsenal click, right? Do I think it's good management or do I think it's just lucky? I think he's got lucky. He's been backed, right? Conte has backed him and he's given him what he wants, and he's managing to make a success of it. Do I like it? Not really. Do I care? Same. No, not really. The wheels will come off at some point.
Until they win something big, then we can't really say, because they won an FA Cup under COVID rules, which, like Liverpool's title, doesn't count. But until they win, if they win the league this season, then I'm going to get scared.
I'm not worried because I think in the off-season, when the season finishes, we'll rebuild again, get some more players in, strengthen the squad, and I think we'll compete next season. I'm not too sure. We'll compete for top 4, and that will bring us on to eventually competing to win the Premier League. It will happen one day.
Not while Pep's around. Not while Pep's around. They won't win the league. I'm sure of it, but I do think they'll beat us today.
That last guy says it for me. All of these managers, their careers will be defined by if Pep Guardiola bothers to stay and keeps going. City's just a different machine. It's just a different beast. How do you feel, Joel, about the potential of a dynasty? Klopp's moving on. Pep Guardiola, who knows how many years he has left at City. How do you feel about that?
Potential is the word.
Yeah.
I think, as anyone will say, Arsenal have to start winning things.
Yep, have to win a trophy.
The thing for me is that it's the first time we're seeing the consistency that needs to be in place for a dynasty to happen. Arsenal made half a go of it last year, fell to bits, very funny. They've taken it one step further this season. They're no longer a team that might be in or around. You look at Arsenal and expect them to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's different. Like you said, Pep is still at City. As long as he's there and City keep winning, then it won't happen. But it's the first time Arsenal are being consistent enough with a good group of players, and you can feel that momentum.
What I think is so impressive about Arteta is like the sort of learning from really specific errors and games and moments, and it's like it is all part of a narrative, and it is semi-hyped up by social media, etc. But it's obvious. Like they went to Newcastle away the last 2 years, and it's been it's like a manly performance. Like they puff their chest out, and it's like we know what happened. We are now more determined, and we think we've got the answer. And it's the same with the last 2 Spurs games at White Hart Lane.
Yeah,
the Champions League year where they didn't make it. It was awful. They really played the occasion, not the match. And this time around, they weren't very good for half an hour, but they were 2-0 up. And it's like that is the sign of a team like that is gonna become champions. Absolutely. Or does it? Somewhere I sort of feel like Liverpool have been champions without the trophy, and I feel like we talk about the Pep thing. I think Arsenal are a champion, they are a championship winning team potentially that won't win a Premier League.
You have to have consistency in winning trophies. Like Klopp done it, Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup, whatever. If Arsenal now win the Premier League this season and come second next season with no trophies, and second the season after, you're not in that category. You have to be consistent in winning big competitions.
I think it's quite hard to disagree, especially tactically this year. The way that they dominate games, it's they throttle teams in the way that City do. It's and then yesterday they were smart in knowing that sitting in against Spurs is the best way to get a result against them. Big talking point yesterday was Van der Ven offside. Now in Sweden they have just voted not to have VAR in the league next year, and there was there was a question about how Premier League fans would feel about that being brought into the Premier League. Has it worked? Do we feel like we need it?
We say every week, it feels like there's different rules to the game every week. Every game you watch, there's a decision given that wasn't given a week before, and then you go to the next game, it's same again. It's I'm all for getting rid of VAR. I mean, with us lot in the ground, when a goal gets given, but then you've got to wait to celebrate again, or maybe not celebrate and feel gutted. And I just think it's sort of ruining the flow of football. It's becoming too stop-start.
You can't make a perfect science out of refereeing football, so do away with it. Just trust the referee. Some they'll get wrong, some they'll get right. It swings and roundabouts. It's always been that way. I'm quite old. We've always lived that way. We just accept the referee's decision and that's it.
I just feel like there's too many sort of open to interpretations with it. I was at the Liverpool Spurs match when that massive faux pas happened, and it's just too many silly mistakes. It's like one rule for one team, different for the other. I just think it either has to be consistent for it to stay, or just completely go, because it's just causing too many problems, too much uproar.
Hate VAR with a passion. Man United would not be going to the FA Cup final if it wasn't for VAR, because if you look at the pictures of it, he's put the VAR line, he's put the line over his toe. Right? It's disgusting that Coventry have been cheated of what will be one of the biggest days out for their fans. An absolute, money spinning event which would help secure a club like Coventry. It takes away all the emotion, and you know what? Things that are missed. A man of my age, anyway. My son won't know this, but one of the biggest things is arguing with your mate who supports Liverpool, supports West Ham, who supports Arsenal, going, "That was clear offside." Oh no, it wasn't. Having that banter, ripping each other, and those days are long gone. Sitting there going, "Oh yeah," and they're going, "Oh, do you know what? Actually, it was offside." But
You just have to look at the decisions that have happened this season to say VAR in the current form isn't fitting the bill. It's not good enough.
What were your thoughts on the Van de Ven offside?
Well, I was right by the celebration, and I'm American, so I don't get to come to many games, but I feel like it just ruins the sport, because the passion that I felt after he scored the goal was immense, like probably the best feeling I've ever had in a long time. So yeah, it pulls the passion out of the game.
I think it's best for the game, sadly, because it makes everything as right as it can be. So I think it's more about the referees probably who should be in charge.
VAR needs to be a bit flexible. The offside in the week, and it was like literally centimetres. It's like, come on, if you had a thicker line instead of that thin line, a thicker line, and if you're across that thicker line, offside. But if you're like, it was a shoe size, and it's ridiculous because it spoils the game.
I'm on the fence at the moment. I mean, it is controversial, don't get me wrong, VAR is controversial, but at the end of the day, offsides is offsides, and it's there for a reason. I'm not a fan of the whole VAR, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, if it's making the right decisions, then I feel like it has to stay.
A lot of chat there about VAR. The Swedish League have voted not to use it in the league next year. Whether the Premier League should get rid of it, it's not going to happen. We're going to bring in semi-automated offsides next year, which should help. It helped a lot in the Women's World Cup, right? And the Men's World Cup.
It got proposed last summer, didn't it?
Yeah, I have no concept of why they didn't go for it. And then the one that was the couple of fans they were talking about after the game was the Van de Ven toenail arse sort of
big old blunder offside.
Hairs on the back of your neck offside, and they took an age to decide whether it was offside.
And they showed him in Stockley Park doing it, and he was sweating. I was like, no. At one point, I think he touched the other guy's leg. He was like, help me.
That was a camera meme. How do you guys feel about VAR then? Should we consider something like that?
Take it all out. I'm taking it all out. The only technical thing we need is goal line technology.
Okay.
Let's bring back where referees make wrong decisions. Yes, as a Liverpool fan, as any fan, you'll get decisions that don't go your way, but that's part of it. That's part of, like, the guy said it perfectly, arguing with your fans and arguing with your friends and all of that.
There was also another fan that said there's no science to this. Like, you can't just say that's the perfect way to do it. So there will always be your decision. The decision you see as a foul, I won't see as a foul, and there will be disagreements, and they will ref the game how the rule book says.
Yeah.
And as Ben has mentioned before, not many people actually know the exact rules.
Yes.
And even referees will have their own opinions on how those rules are to be taken and understood.
I think you can improve it in multiple different ways. I think like player challenges would firstly reduce how much it impacts the amount of time spent during games. It gives like a good threshold for like what is clear and obvious. It's like, well, the players think that's clear and obvious, and they're happy to waste a challenge if they're wrong. I think there needs to be some form of way that TV viewers can hear what's going on between refs, like they do in literally every other sport in the world. And that, I think that's where it pisses people off more than anything. But then I do think that to an extent, if it doesn't improve in the next like year or so, there's no hot, like, it's like maybe football is just running up the wrong mountain. It worked for rugby, tennis, cricket, etc. It just doesn't work for the football scape of fans, the emotions, like the different pressure levels, because it is different to rugby and all these other sports. Like football is just under the microscope like nothing else.
100%.
And I think, and the reason it's called the beautiful game is the emotion and like the scenes when you score.
100%.
So that's the argument where I'm most swayed against VAR, but I do think there is still room for it to improve. It's just at the moment we just seem to have fucking idiots.
Ange said it after the game. He said the game's not refereed on the pitch anymore.
Exactly.
He's always come out and said that he doesn't like VAR, doesn't like the way that it impacts the game. The game's not refereed on the pitch. And a good example of that is Declan Rice boots Ben Davies in the arse. The referee is two feet away from it, looking directly at it, and goes, I'm not going to give it because I know that if I get it wrong, I can just go. He barely even got to the monitor. He could
Yeah.
see it playing on the monitor, got to the line and just went, yeah, that's a penalty.
Yeah.
It's because he already knew it was.
Sounds like a penalty. It does sound like a
He already
pen.
knew
What
it
you're
was.
telling me
He already
sounds
knew
like
it
a
was.
pen.
And look, the other thing is like scrutiny. The Mickey van der Ven offside that people are talking about.
Yeah.
There was a discussion about whether Tomiyasu moves his head into the ball and thus creates a second phase of play that Van der Ven scores from. But they don't want to scrutinise. They don't want to pull the game back that much. And really, the Lino gave it onside.
And this is the thing. Like Ben's already touched on it. From day dot, they've said the kind of boundary of error that we're using is clear and obvious areas. These offsides that are millimetres are not clear and obvious. If a linesman sees it happening in front of them and goes, I reckon he could be on here, and doesn't give it on the pitch, we've discussed it before, there should be an element of doubt where they get to say, right, you stick with the on-pitch decision. Drawing lines is not a clear and obvious
it was exactly
error.
the same as the Coventry one last week.
100%.
It was like that. It was that level of detail.
Attackers used to get the benefit of the doubt for tight calls
Well,
before the
that's
technology came in.
something-
It was, well, if the attackers managed to get in behind the defence and time is run almost perfectly,
Because we
the
wanted
attacker
more
gets
goals in the
benefit
game.
of
And
doubt.
it's hard
That's
to
it.
score a goal and all that stuff. Look, all very relevant. I'm sure the discussion will rage on until the end of the season.
In the comments
And the
on this
Euros,
video.
In the comments, what do you think should happen with VAR? Should we bin it? Do we need to update it? Do we need ex-players in there? What do you think needs to happen? Look, that's all we got time for today. Lots to talk about. We went through a lot of stuff. Arsenal might go on to win the Premier League, and you might never see me again. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe, comment, and like, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.